Hello and welcome for my video, and especially from software slash souls slash Elden Ring community. So Namco Bandai just released information for the latest patch that has been rolled out for the game Elden Ring. And I think a lot of the things were not of surprise, at least not to me, and I think most people in the community have seen this coming already. Some of the things that were patched were just way too good pre-patch. Some of the weapons that were just devastating bosses, but also some combinations using the Ash of War Royal Knight's Resolve. I want to go over the patch notes. I'll just go quickly over them, read them all out, and then I'm gonna address the one points that I think matter the most, that I think are the most relevant, especially when it comes to weapon usability and usability of certain skills. Let's go. Notice of update distribution. The targeted platforms are PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, and Steam. So for the major changes with the latest update, additional elements added. Added a function to record an icon and name of an NPC on the map when you encounter that NPC. Added NPC Jar Bairn. I don't know who that is. It will be interesting to see who that is and what relevance that NPC will have. I'll probably look it up on the Fextra Live on the wiki. Added new quest phases for the following NPCs: Dialos, Nephili, Lux, Canis Hay, Gatekeeper, Gostok. So again, additional content. This is just super interesting that From Software is not just fixing things and adjusting things, but actually adding content. Of course, not in the size of a DLC, but still, this is like some nice treatment. Added some summonable NPCs in multiple situations. Increased the number of patterns of objects player can imitate when using Mimic's Veil. Added night background music for some open field area. For the bug fixes. Fixed a bug that prevented summoned NPCs from taking damage in some boss battles. I have not experienced that. Fixed a bug that sometimes prevented the player from obtaining item after boss battle. Also, nothing that I had experienced. Fixed a bug that causes dialogue to be skipped when talking to NPCs and using custom key configurations. I don't know if it is a bug or if that was a bug that I experienced, but I noticed that in NPC dialogue, sometimes clicking the button, it seemed like it initiated a double skip. So I possibly experienced that. Fixed a bug that causes the player to freeze when riding. Not experienced. Fixed a bug that causes arcane to scale incorrectly for some weapons. And this has been widely reported, especially on the Wikipedia, on the Fextra Life, in the comments section for arcane weapons. In situation where the player cannot obtain more than 2 talisman pouches, add a talisman pouch to Twin Maiden Husk's shop line up. Interesting. I have not experienced that, but this seems to be an unusual solution, just making it available through the vendor. Fixed a bug that prevented the user from warping to sites of grace from the map at the end of the game. Nothing that I had experienced. Fixed a bug which causes some weapons to have incorrect scaling after strengthening. This is also, I think, widely reported on the Extra Life, that some weapons seem to get weaker on the last upgrade, or from one upgrade level to the next. Fixed a bug which causes some weapons to not use stat scaling. Fixed hang-ups in certain occasions. Fixed a bug which incorrectly displays multiplayer area boundary when playing online. Fixed a bug that allows player to activate Earth Tree Great Shield weapon skill without absorbing an attack using a special combination of item and incantation. Fixed a bug which causes Fire's Deadly Sin incantation to have different effect. Fixed a bug with the Ash of War, Determination and Royal Knight's Resolve, where the damage buff will also apply to other weapons without that skill. And I think that's an important bug fix, especially for competitive PvP. Because, like specifically the Ash of War Royal Knight's Resolve, which gave, at least the intention of the skill was to give an 85% buff to your next single attack with the buffed weapon, and the buff being active for 10 seconds. But pre-patch it was possible to exploit the 85% buff by not using the weapons that you were buffing and using the other weapon and or skills not related to the weapon to profit off that high buff. And there were lots of videos on YouTube creating crazy builds with insane damage numbers, implementing that skill. So it's not just that skill, it's a few others too. Adjusted the visual effect of Unseen Form spell. Deleted the Wrecked Armor set from the game, which was mistakenly obtainable in previous patch. I didn't even know of that set, and I don't know why it was removed, but I looked it up and it didn't look that pretty, so I don't know why. Fixed the bug that causes some hostile NPCs to drop Kelling Finger Remedy. Fix the bug that causes incorrect sound effect to play in some situations. Fix the bug which causes visual animation and hitboxes to not be displayed correctly in some maps. Not experienced, as I know. Fixed bugs which causes incorrect visual and behavior for some enemies. Fixed a bug that causes incorrect stat parameter for some armor. Text fixes, other performance improvements, and bug fixes. Now for the balance changes. These are not bugs, but these are tweaks to how effective, how strong, or how costly some spells or actions are. These are: increase the drop rate of smithing stone for some enemies. Absolutely welcome. I think this just makes the game more approachable. Smithing stones are not a super rarity, considering they can be bought after giving an item to the vendor. But up to early mid-game, it can be sometimes annoying to get your hands on the smithing stones to upgrade your weapon to at least a bit of a higher level to make the game a bit more easy. So I think there is a slight unnecessary increase in difficulty of the game due to enemies getting more difficult, getting stronger, but you not having access as a player to smithing stones to improve your weapon along the rise of difficulty. So, welcome. Added smithing stone to some early game shop lineup. So, I don't know, I think that kind of contradicts the necessity to increase the drop rate if there is now a vendor having the stone available at his or her shop. Increased shield's effectiveness. I don't know if that means the effectiveness of shields in general. I had the feeling that some shields, especially small and medium-sized shields, were not that viable, as it was pretty easy for even average-sized enemies with light weapons to break through the defense. Like in past Souls games, it would be much more viable to have a shield in your left hand. So it's a welcome adjustment, I think. Increase the damage for all offensive cracked pot items, making items more damaging. I have no real opinion regarding that. Increased damage for the following items: spark aromatic, poison spray mist. Again, no real opinion. Increase the effect duration for the following items: uplifting aromatic, iron jar aromatic. Increased HP healing for torrent when using the following items: raw raisin, sweet raisin, and frozen raisin. Now, this is an important part. I think possibly one of the most important parts of the changes. Reduced FP consumption and increased the damage of the following sorceries: Glintstone, Comet Chart, Comet, and Night Comet. And these spells had been noted to be quite underwhelming, especially at least when compared to the skill Loretta's Great Bow, due to all the Comet spells being possible to be spammed and activated much faster than the Loretta spell, but also being much more expensive while at the same time not competing damage-wise when fully charged. So they are kind of niche, and I hope that this patch makes them a lot more viable. Increased the damage of the following sorceries: Gravity Well, Collapsing Stars, Crystal Barrage. I have never used these spells much, so I have no opinion regarding that. Decreased FP consumption of the following sorceries, and this is quite a lot. quite a lot of sorceries. I think, yeah, some of the sorceries were too expensive to be viable, so I guess this is welcome. Raised projectile speed and range of Great Linstone's chart. And yes, I noticed that spell has an incredibly short distance. I felt that the casting time is the same like the usual glintstone chart, so I don't know if the increase of casting speed was necessary. Next one. I think this one is again a quite important one, a big one. Decreased Ash of War, Hard Frost stamps damage and increase cast time. That skill was vastly overpowered and was even exploited by lots of speedrunners against bosses. The attack spreads out very far and very wide. The damage is quite decent. The action is executed very quickly and it covers the ground, passing small objects, going over it, and even around things like obstacles like pillars. So it was an extremely versatile skill for PvE and PvP. Increased Ash of War Bloody Slash self-inflict damage while slightly lowering the damage and increasing the cast time. About this one, I don't know if I'm that happy about it. I think it was an overpowered skill that needed some nerfing. The slight lowering of the damage, I think I go along with that. But I looked it up, the increase of the self-inflicted damage is now 130. And that is, I think, way too high. So if we consider that a lot of the starting characters, a lot of the classes have a vitality state, a vigor state of around level 10, maybe level 12, which according to Fextra Life equals 414 to 455 HP, meaning that the penalty of the skill Bloody Slash with 130 HP means that that's equivalent to more than a fourth, a quarter of the total HP, which would mean that the player would kill himself with 4 attacks, which is, I think, too much of a penalty for the skill, making the skill now nerfed too much, especially for beginner characters, making this not a viable skill for beginners, which is quite a shame considering it's early obtainable. Next one, I think very important. Decreased weapon skill, Sword of Night and Flames damage. There are a lot of videos out there. I think it's probably the single most overpowered weapon. Increased FP consumption and lower duration of Ash of War Barricade Shield. No opinion on my side. Changed FP consumption timing of Ash of War Prelate's Charge. No opinion on my side. Decreased the damage of Spirit Summoned when using the item Mimic Tear Ash and change the spirit's behavior pattern. I think this is a pretty big one. It's probably well known that the Mimic Tear Ash is severely overpowered, as you could give yourself the most overpowered weapons, making yourself already overpowered, and then using the Mimic Tear Ash, which is an overpowered ash, copying your way overpowered weapons making you and your Ash twice or double overpowered. It's just ridiculous. Or it was. But I still hope that this is a viable Ash still, as I thought a lot of creativity resolved around building specific character builds that were more viable for the Ash, for the Mimic, than for you yourself. So I really love the idea of giving the player a lot of creativity, a lot of possibility to play around with that Ash, with that Mimic tier Ash. Other enemy and weapon balance changes. So that's it for the bug fixes and for the adjustments. And I think I already addressed the most important ones. I think the most important ones are probably the fixes that fix arcane scaling, as that was reported to be not working properly, making whole builds, making a whole stat non-efficient. And the other most important things are the adjustments of especially the two skills of the Night and Flame skill and the Heart Frost Stomp, as these two abilities, these skills, were just vastly overpowered. I think there will be some hate and some grief maybe for some people who heavily relied on these skills. I think they were kind of cheap, as it seemed like not to really demand any skill to beat the game with these skills. And I like it. I'm the first one to jump in front of the game when the community screams, "That's overpowered," bleeding overpowered, frost being overpowered, Scarlet Rot being overpowered, this skill is overpowered, blah blah blah, magic is overpowered. I think there are lots of ways and lots of creative combinations to build really overpowered niche characters, but usually it resolves around stacking a very specific combination of skills and investing lots of talisman and level and specific gear towards achieving a very specific thing, like making one skill very strong. But these two specific skills, the Night and Flame skill and the Heart Frost Stomp skill, they were just on their own without any specific building towards making them efficient. Just on their own, they were just so overpowered that I think it was necessary to nerf them. And I think some of the spells, especially some of the sorceries, it's not that they were bad, they were just not viable for long run play. So there were some spells that were just not viable to the point of being useless. So yeah, that's it pretty much. I hope you feel informed, and thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. See you again. Goodbye.